thanks, Kelly. So if Deb and Dick and Katie join us, well, they'll just be a few minutes late. First, I want to welcome, yes, that is Kelsey. Okay, hi, Kelsey. Everyone, I want you to meet Kelsey. Could you pronounce your last name for us?
Yes, it's Bobby. I know it doesn't look like Bobby, but it's Bobby.
Okay. Kelsey Bobby is the newest member of the Sustainability Committee. Everyone, welcome, Kelsey. And with her appointment, we now have a full slate of members, the full 10. So that's great news. And Kelsey, we won't do introductions for all of us, but just to help us get to know you a little better, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And also part of that, what motivated you to want to join the Sustainability Committee?
Sure. I went to UW for undergrad, and while I was there, they started the environmental resources major my junior year. So I could only get a minor. UW calls it a certificate, but it's a minor. But then I went to grad school and I doubled in public health and environmental science. I now work in public health, and obviously, as we all recognize, health has a lot to do with one's environment. But I don't feel from my work, I do public health research and I do clinical trials. I am missing that sustainability and that eco love that I have. And so I was seeking new and different ways to do that. And I moved to Middleton 2 years ago now. So I've been kind of looking on how to get involved in, and this is one way I thought of.
Great. Well, thank you for that introduction. Sounds like you landed in a good place, both here in Middleton and on this committee, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
I hope you'll get to know all of us through Zoom mostly, because the city has gone back to a policy of having all these meetings in Zoom for the foreseeable future, but we're hoping someday eventually to have one of our meetings in person. So. Okay, we'll move on to the first item on our agenda, which is the approval of the minutes. Kelly circulated the minutes last Friday, August 13th. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes? Last call for comments or corrections or questions. Okay, hearing none, there being no comments or corrections, the minutes as circulated on August 13th, 2021 are approved. Let's move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is public comments. Now is the time during our meeting when we usually would hear from members of the public. Consistent with the guidance from the city, we want to limit comments to items on our agenda. Anything that isn't on the agenda, if members of the public have an interest in, it's advised that they address those concerns or ideas to Common Council for further action, possibly by this committee. I do not see any members of the public on this call. Kelly, do you? Like somebody may be calling in?
I think that there's other people on the call. Maybe there was someone who was not a member of they don't have their hand raised.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, maybe they dropped off. I
Okay.
don't see them now.
All right. Well, not hearing any interest in public comments, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the ground rules. I circulated these on Thursday last week, the 12th, and when we passed these last year, it was kind of late in the year, and we decided we would well, first of all, when we adopted them, it's because it really is a best practice to have clearly understood goals for how our meetings will be conducted and how we will function as a group. And what we did last year was developed these draft ground rules, approved them, so we'd review them every year. It's been less than a year since we adopted them, but since we have 3 new members and a full slate of members for the first time in a while, I thought this would be a good idea to go through and reaffirm what we put in the ground rules. I circulated, Kelly, I don't know if you have it available, but I circulated a marked up version of the last year's ground rules, and the changes that I put into the document are things that the city provides guidance on in the board, commission, and committee handbook for non-elected volunteers. I hope you all have a copy of the PDF of that document. If you don't, please reach out to Kelly so that she can get you a copy, and then please do read it because it's important. The other changes in there, I added an introduction. I separated the bullets, original and new ones, into categories. And I inserted a couple items gleaned from the training that Mike Davis conducted for all of us in June. So I'm going to seek a motion to approve in a second, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So Kelly, have you been able to find it? I sent the message on Thursday last week.
Do you want me to try to find it in my email?
If that's awkward for you, I mean, you can pause the sharing now and find it in email.
10:05 a.m.
Thank you, Dominic.
Yep.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for Kelly to find the file, does anybody want to move to approve?
I'd move to approve it.
Yeah, I'll
Approve
Okay,
the proposed ground rules.
okay, so Spencer moves. Dominic, were you seconding?
I will second, yes.
Okay, then now we'll open it up for discussion. Any luck, Kelly?
Yeah, it just takes me a bit of time.
Sorry.
I have it on my
Yeah.
screen. I don't know if it's possible to switch. Is it faster to switch who can
Yeah.
share?
Yeah, I
It might be.
have it too.
Do you see it now?
Oh, she found it. Good.
Ta-da.
Okay. All right. So as you see, that initial paragraph just, introduces why it is we have the ground rules. And then the bullets down under conduct of meetings mentions Mike Davis was clear that we should all, since it is a public meeting and we're accountable to the public, we should all have our video showing when we are not present in a room. And if we're connecting through video, we should have our cameras turned on. That doesn't mean that you can't walk away from your desk with your camera turned on. I mean, it's the same as if we were in a meeting room. If you had to get up to use the facilities or fill up your water bottle or something, you are welcome to do that. But it's a good idea to just keep your camera on while you walk away. The comments or the change to public comment period being focused on what's on our agenda. Mike covered that in our training, and then the chat function being disabled is something he added. And then for the member responsibilities, I just added a bullet, like pointing people to what I think are some really critical sections of the city handbook, and then clarifying that, again, in the city handbook, it's expected that we all attend the regularly scheduled meetings. Obviously, things come up and we can't always attend all of them. But since we also occasionally schedule special meetings, I clarified that if you can't make it to any meeting, please let me and Kelly know. It's especially important for those, well, it's important for all meetings, but if we don't have a quorum, we can't have a meeting. So if we have to schedule a special meeting and it turns out members aren't going to be able to make it, we need to find another date so that we can get a quorum. Okay, so I'll open it up to all of you to discuss. Any comments, concerns, clarifications, additions, whatever moves you.
My only comment is not having the chat. I know we've had in the past. I like the idea of not having the chat, just keep things streamlined. Is that possible to turn off?
Yes. It's a Zoom setting.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that was my fault.
Kermit, go ahead.
Yeah. I like all the additions and clarifications and affirm the original text. I do have a question and I interest regarding the non-members public comment. And my understanding of the guidance that Mike Davis was giving was that it wasn't a mandate, but that it was something that would be allowable to restrict the comments. In my estimation, we have not had a problem with that. And to a certain extent, I guess I would like us to allow for the possibility that there may be public comments that may not be directly related to the agenda, but are directly related to the committee's work that might benefit from being heard in this forum. And so I would propose that we keep the original phrasing and hold in our back pocket, tightening that restriction or throwing that restriction into place if it should prove to be problematic in the future.
I'm listening, Kermit. I hear your comment and I'm just checking some words from Mike Davis. And he,
Yeah, I mean, if you have something in writing that,
yeah, he concluded, I recommend using the public comment section exclusively for agenda items for which the committee is seeking public input and not as a regular agenda item. He didn't even think it should be a standing agenda item.
yeah, and I'm inclined to be biased in favor of maintaining an openness to input and participation as much as possible. I think a public comment period is a fairly modest but symbolically meaningful and occasionally meaningful from a content and engagement standpoint. So that's my vote or my inclination.
Okay, other members' reaction? Go ahead, Deb. And then Dave.
I agree with Kermit. I think we should be a little more flexible. That seems to be kind of an inflexible kind of rule. Also, on the second page, I thought we had talked about let's see, agenda items. I thought 2 weeks we had gotten that a little more flexible instead of 2 weeks. That's a lot of time. You know, when things come up, it might be nice to have maybe prior to when you sit down with Kelly to come up with the agenda, which is like 1 week, right? It seems 2 weeks is a long time to have in order to come up with some agenda item that you think is important.
Okay.
I think 1 week would be better when you guys are writing the agenda.
Okay. I think that's a good point, Deb, because I think when this was originally written, our goal was to coordinate, Kelly and I to coordinate at least 2 weeks in advance so that the agenda could get out to all of you and you'd have whatever materials would be in the packet with more time to review. But I think we also encountered a situation where timing wise, Kelly, you can't get it out before then. There was something about the posting of the items online, and it turned out we wouldn't be able to meet that 2 week advance deadline anyway. So it does seem like if we are meeting a week before the meeting, that should be sufficient for you all to get agenda items to me and Kelly for consideration. All right, I'll accept that friendly amendment unless there's an objection to change that to 1 week.
As to clarifying that friendly amendment, is will 1 week work to allow, then you will not meet with Kelly until after 1 week before, so that you'll be sure to have time to get these comments, if any come?
We typically meet the Wednesday before our meeting. And originally our goal had been to meet 2 Wednesdays before the meeting so that you all would have at least a week to review everything. Kelly, is there anything stopping us from meeting that deadline?
You mean, you want to do it, you're asking if we could do it sooner? I mean, I think from my end, I don't mind what your decision is on when committee members submit their comments, but from a city standpoint, oftentimes alders will reach out and want something on the agenda, or things happen quickly during budget season in the city. So I need a bit more flexibility than putting it out 2 weeks ahead of time. But as far as creating a deadline for the committee members, that's up to you all. I don't think I could get it out sooner than a few days, business days before the meeting.
Yep, that's what
Realistically, I maybe strive to do better, but I don't think I can.
Spencer or Dick's next in line, and then we'll hear from you.
Okay, am I up?
Yes, go ahead, Dick.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, I just got in town here, and thank you, Deb, for reminding me there was a meeting. I've been away from email and internet, so I just had to comment on the public thing. I'm not sure whether you got a motion here or what's going on, but I agree with Kermit here. I know that I brought it up last meeting, saying that we should not be using the public comment time for us as committee members to be bringing things up. That should be things we would add for agenda items at the end. But I do think it's important to allow the public to come up with ideas of things that we don't even think about, and giving that 3 minutes to present an idea of something that we may decide, then, okay, that's something worth pursuing, let's put it on the agenda. So I like the idea of an open public forum for 3 minutes to bring up ideas as well as to comment on something that is on the agenda. So I think that's the spirit I like there. The other thing that I wanted to say, I was never in favor, in fact, probably voted against it or abstained, of 2 weeks for the agenda, just like Deb is saying, and Kelly has made pretty clear. If we can still have, as committee members, a chance to contact both Kelly and you, Lisa, to say, hey, this is something that we think is really important to put on the agenda. And obviously you have control over whether we have enough time to discuss it, or make a decision between the two of you that it's really important to discuss at this upcoming meeting or not. At least having 1 week before gives us a lot more opportunity to pick up last minute things that may become important. So that's all I got.
Okay. Okay, Spencer?
Yeah, I'm muted. I like the idea, like the concept of 2 weeks. Does it make sense to change it to say 2 weeks is when it's due, and there give some sort of emergency, or upon review by Lisa or the chair and Kelly, something could be added after that. I mean, planning for last minute is never a good idea in my mind. I think if there's a way to make your lives easier, to have it sooner the better, with a little bit of flexibility. But we're splitting hairs, and I would say roll with whatever it is. But I think the planning of 2 weeks, if you think of it 1 week at a time, you probably would have thought of it 2 weeks at a time if you'd put the time in.
Yeah, I think if it's permissible for alders to get us stuff at the last minute, like that last week before the meeting, then we should give committee members the same courtesy. And we really, you know, Kelly and I usually have a pretty good list going into that last week before the meeting, so that on our Wednesday meeting, you know, we can be most efficient in figuring out how, you know, what to put on the agenda. So I'm comfortable with the 1 week, and it sounds like Kelly is too. With regard to the public comments, I'm also comfortable not restricting public comments to items on the agenda, even though I will acknowledge that is the guidance from the city. However, I do think if we drop the red text, Kelly, if you go up to the first page, if we drop the red text and just end it with may speak during the public comment period, I think we should add clarification that during the meeting, the committee may not consider comments that pertain to items not on the agenda, because that's really what the concern from the city is. Like, for example, we had somebody bring up lead in the jet fuel, the plane fuel that's used at the airport. And that wasn't part of our noticed agenda. So anybody who felt differently than the commenter about this issue did not have an opportunity to show up and be prepared to comment on that particular issue. And so I think we just, you know, my approach is just to thank the commenter, and then we move on to the next one, or we move on to our agenda if there are no more comments. But occasionally, you know, it has come up where we've responded to somebody's comment, and we can't do that. If we put it on the last agenda item, which is our standing agenda item to decide on, you know, ideas for the next time or a future meeting, we can do that. We can put it there, but that's the extent of the conversation we can have about whatever comes up in the public comment period, unless it's about something that's already on the agenda and other people have had a chance to show up. Kelly?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I would just say maybe Katie Nelson can clarify this, but like if there's a public commenter that presents, you know, just really truly misinformation or a very racist comment or something, I think that the alders might always have the permission, and as well as the mayor, to always speak, even when it may not be the committee protocol. Is that right, Katie? Or I mean, I would like someone to be able to respond to something if it's just blatant, you know, misinformation, or if it's some like a racist comment or something. But I never really know where staff responsibility lies, or committee members, how they freely can speak. What do you think, Katie?
In my experience, and I've only seen that happen in a council meeting, you guys are right. You should not comment on a public comment during that section of the meeting. You should just say thank you. But I have seen Mike Davis, the city administrator, call people out if it's blatantly racist or complete disinformation. And I'm happy to be that person if that's what, you know, I'm happy to do that. I don't technically know if it's the alder's job in a committee to do that, but I mean, I think Lisa is perfectly capable of saying that too. We're not talking about that tonight, and I would like to mention that is not true, you know, and then move on. Yeah, like I said, it's rare, but yeah, you can't just play the, yeah, I get where you're coming from, Kelly, for sure.
Okay, thank you for that question, Kelly. So as it now stands, the proposal, you know, we've got the motion from Spencer, which motion I'm going to ask him to amend to change 2 weeks prior to a regularly scheduled committee meeting to 1 week. And the other change will be to in the 1, 2, 3, 4, well, the bullet that starts with non-members may speak. Scrap the part of that in red Okay, and it's going to say non-members may speak during the public comment period. During the meeting, the committee may not respond to comments that pertain to items not on the meeting agenda.
Lisa,
Kermit,
do you have a phrasing in mind to address Kelly's concern? I totally agree with the concern she raised and that Katie was addressing.
okay, we could say during the meeting, except under extraordinary circumstances, the committee may not respond to comments that pertain to items not on the meeting agenda. And then it's up to us to interpret what extraordinary circumstances are, and that would be the one, the taking on racism. Spencer.
It might be worth getting a rule, an opinion from Mike Davis on how that actually, who that should be, whether it's all their staff or like, I just would feel comfortable with getting guidance from somebody else on that one.
Good idea.
But I would make that motion. It looks like Christy has a comment here, I guess.
Christy?
I'll hold on.
Yeah, I agree with, what people are saying here. I like the word, maybe use discretion. I don't know who it's gonna be that's gonna say something, but maybe, something about, at their discretion or something, because I think extreme, or whatever. Extraordinary, yeah, it's just such left up to such interpretation. But if we say at their discretion, well, that really is then at their discretion.
But I think that might open the door to
Yeah.
people saying, well, this is a really valid point for climate change. So
Yeah, that's true too. Yep.
Katie,
I just want to say, as long as we're checking with Mike Davis, let's check and see if it's even possible to take any comments other than the agenda items, because that's what's recommended by the city. And any other public comments that they want to make can come to a council meeting. And as
Dick.
long as you're checking with him on that anyway. And I would also bet that he would say, Lisa, you're running the meeting, and you can say, we're not talking about that. And you could cut someone off.
and just for clarification, Katie, to me, the guidance from Mike is pretty clear that one, they wouldn't even recommend that we always have a public comment period. And two, we should not accept comments on anything not on our agenda. But I hear the members saying this committee is a little different than others, and we should leave open the possibility.
Is
Yep.
it different than others?
I only attend these meetings, so I don't know. And I mean, truthfully, I would rather have members of the public who want to comment about the airport commission and the airport itself. I'd rather have them going to council and saying lead is a concern, or PFAS in the water might be a concern, and having you all, the elected officials, direct the question to us, as a committee or wherever it should appropriately go.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that we're that different. So,
Well, how about this, folks? Do we want to table this discussion until next time? I'm sorry, Dick, your hand is raised.
Yeah, well, I think tabling is a good idea. I just say the word appropriateness. I think what you were getting at is allowing the chair to basically respond to a citizen comment. And if it's not appropriate, based on what we're determining as being racist or inaccurate or whatever, then the chair would have the discretion to comment and cut off the appropriateness of citizen comment or something. And that way it would be recorded in the minutes that you said, well, this is not an appropriate comment for whatever the reason that you're wanting to state. And I would be happy, fine if Katie wants to comment on it too. I mean, being our alder, but I think the point that Kelly was raising is that, well, if some public comment gets in the list, gets in the minutes, and it's being really blatantly wrong or racist, then I think the chair should have the discretion saying this is inappropriate comment, and we're asking that you stop or something like that.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, let's check with Mike on how he wants us to play it. And just as a little point of order, I would like to have you say defer this as opposed to table. In council, we use the word table as we're never talking about this again.
Okay, good point. All right, so we'll defer this action until next time. And in the meantime, Kelly and I will reach out to Mike Davis and get some clarification and more guidance. And we'll revise the language. Spencer?
Is there any value to voting on it and amending it next time to, if we vote on this with shorting of that time period? So we have ground rules in place and then amend it afterwards? Does it make any?
Well, we could do that. We do have ground rules in place that are very similar to this.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable
Right.
proceeding with the original ground rules. These just add a few things that, for clarity,
Perfect.
like I said. Yeah, okay, so we'll come back to this next time. Kelly and I will check with Mike Davis. I will mention one more thing that I did not put in the ground rules as a proposed change because I just didn't think it was necessary, but in communication with Mike Davis. This isn't in the committee handbook, perhaps for obvious reasons, but since we are public officials and this is a public meeting, it is considered inappropriate for us to partake in any alcoholic beverages while we are at the meeting. So if you wouldn't do it, it's at the city council building, if you wouldn't be coming in with a beer or a martini or something to City Hall, please refrain until after the meeting is over. That doesn't mean you can't have a glass of wine or something with dinner, but just please, remember our obligations as public officials. So
Pure
thank you.
water over here.
Okay, now one of the ground rules is to appoint a timekeeper. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer. Who would like to be the timekeeper tonight? Kermit, how about you as vice chair?
Oh, sure.
Oh, thank you, Kermit.
Let me pull up the agenda here and see how bad we're doing so far. No, we don't,
We're doing
actually,
we're
probably
doing
not
pretty
too
bad, but we can catch up. But we're going into Kelly's staff report, and I've already asked Kelly to focus on because Kelly does a ton of stuff. She was on vacation, so she doesn't have a ton to report on this time, but I did ask her to try to focus on the top 3 or 4 things that we need to know about this month. And then also to reserve half of the time allotted for Q&A, because last time I think we had a 10-minute report from Kelly and 20 minutes of Q&A. So Kelly, you're up next. And Kermit, this is 10 minutes.
With 5 minutes for the report and 5 minutes for the Q&A.
All right, go. I'll be brief. Can you see the agenda back again on your screens?
Yes.
Just checking. Okay. So I'll be brief. This week we met with MG&E about charging infrastructure for the public. I wanted to get more of a grasp on if we're behind or what we need to be thinking about. And MG&E is a good resource to talk to about that. And we had a great meeting with their engineers and Debbie Branson, who is in charge of the EV part of MG&E's department. And she said really that public charging is only used about 2%. They've got stats on that. And what we should really focus on is increasing home charging. And they have some various programs you can take part in. But however you do that, to focus on home charging, that's both single family and rental multifamily. And she also said that that there's a lot of developers who've reached out to them, and she said that it's really becoming it's something that renters are demanding, and all home buyers and condo owners are demanding, and that there's quite a few people in Middleton trying to put in more charging stations than what the minimum requirements are or minimum suggestions are for percentage of parking spaces that have access to charging stations. So she thought it really should probably be more about public education And then maybe some new technology based on the fact that you can network the charging stations so that it's cheaper for the developer or for the building owner to network several stations together instead of doing them all individually. And that's something MG&E understands, and I'm sure other companies that do charging stations understand. So I think it's just staying ahead of the technology and also doing just tons of talking about it in education. And so we're going to work on that with MG&E, with our website. And then the vehicle replacement this year includes a potential hybrid detective car and potentially a hybrid interceptor patrol car. Our chief of police is very supportive of that and is on board with doing that. And they've talked to Sun Prairie chief, who was really, all the feedback was very positive. The officers really like the hybrid patrol vehicles. So all of those opinions are out there. It's just now sort of in the hands of Brian Gebhardt, our fleet manager, to go ahead and purchase one of those this year. But Brian did put in a hybrid detective car. They didn't want to do all electric on that because apparently the detective drives all over the state and sometimes is in a small town for days on end. And they didn't want to, before the infrastructure is set up everywhere, they just didn't feel comfortable having an all electric car, but they are willing to do hybrid. And then the only other vehicle that's coming online potentially in 2022 is like a Gator, a John Deere Gator for the Parks Department. All the other cars and vehicles are like either heavy duty equipment. There's really no electric option right now. There's some Ford 150s, but they're not quite ready, the hybrid, to roll out this year to purchase right away. So I think there's some progress being made, but it's still slow and we only buy a few vehicles each year. So that's the update on that. And the solar panels are now installed at the 3 sites in Middleton, the EMS, Lakeview Shelter, and the mock. They're not energized yet. They're working on the electrical system this week, but the panels are now on the roof of all 3 buildings. So the major construction work there is sort of done. And the last thing I'll say is that we submitted a feasibility study to put in a really large scale TC microgrid out in the industrial district in our TIF 3 district. We hatched a very conceptual plan the day before I left for vacation. And then I was just able to hand it off to our consultants at Vandewall, and they produced an incredible 28-page grant, which I think you all should read just for the educational value of learning about what community size microgrids could look like. It was really a fascinating, incredible grant. But I think whether or not we get the grant from the PSC, one thing it did do was we had discussions with Kiva, Spectrum, UW Health, HiSite, several other major businesses out there, and they were all super excited about it. And they talked about forming resiliency centers, maybe at Kiva, and
5 minutes.
Okay, and last sentence, and the consultant found that there are 35 acres worth of rooftop solar out in that industrial district that could potentially feed into this microgrid, and the airport is also on as a supporter of this project. So we'll see, what happens. It would just be a feasibility study. So that's my report.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Kermit. Does anybody have questions for Kelly? Dominic?
Yeah, you mentioned briefly in the city of Middleton fleet status that the heavy duty vehicles were not really candidates for electric or hybrid. Has the city considered compressed natural gas or renewable natural gas, RNG?
Yeah, we have. I'm really trying to work with our fleet manager on that. They've had discussions with the county. We've had meet and greets where all the municipalities and the county come and bring all of their vehicles, and those are RNG vehicles. And it just hasn't quite caught on. One challenge is that our mock building that houses the fleet isn't currently set up to be able to house CNG or RNG vehicles. And so the first step would be retrofitting that building for safety, I think, to allow those vehicles. And then secondly, I think there's been sort of a information not campaign, the information that's been spread early on about RNG and CNG, like with the snow plows, didn't come back very positive from what our fleet manager heard. So I think there's a bit of I think they've worked out a lot of the kinks over the years, but there's still this perception that it's difficult to run those huge fleet vehicles for very much time with enough power. And so even if that's wrong, I just think I'm really working on that. Like, we've connected different people with our fleet manager, and you know, you really need to get the fleet managers together from these different places, because they'll straight talk with one another. There's nothing I could say or really that could sway anyone. It's really got to be the people who drive those vehicles. So I'd say that's in process.
Can I ask Dominic, do you have a follow-up or a different question?
Follow-up, if I may.
Go ahead.
Is there enough value across the entire fleet to consider retrofitting the mock building for RNG readiness for other vehicles, or potentially down the line? Is that interesting as a standalone effort?
I mean, I'm really interested in that, and I think other people would be as well. They really wanted to do that early on, and I need to get my story straight, but they did look into that, and there was some reason why they couldn't go ahead and build it like that from ground up. I can't remember what the story is, but it's always like everyone sighs when I talk about it, and they're like, yeah, we wanted to do that and we weren't able to. So I do think that that's still on the table. I don't think that the building not being retrofitted is the stopping point for that going forward. I think if everyone was on board with RNG, which I hope that they will be, then I think that would happen or could happen.
Okay.
I don't think it's a no-go.
Christy and then Dick.
Hi, okay, thank you. I'm going to try to keep my comments and questions rather short. So feel free to defer me or, whatever. But first of all, I like the idea of reading the Vanderwall grant. Where would I find that? Or where would we find that?
I will send it to you. It's public. It's a public document on the PSC docket if you want to search for it tonight. But I can also...
Yeah, if you could send that to all of us, Kelly, that would be good.
Okay, thank you. Next thing, and again, I think this is a little bit on a tangent, so feel free to just say, let's take that offline or something. But, you mentioned the MG&E chargers, the electric car chargers. My next car, I want to buy an electric. We participate in the MG&E solar or the green thing, and we do the solar now at Middleton. But, I have my eye on an Audi. I don't know if I'm going to actually end up paying that much money for an electric car, but I know MG&E has a program, electric car charger program. I looked on their website, but then also on the Audi website, it says they partner with this Qmerit company to charge at home. So I think I guess I'm just sort of a little bit more of a question and a statement that I try to minimally keep up on this stuff, and I'm confused about what I need to even get an electric car, and I haven't gone down the road in it. So I don't know if that's something to consider for like education and things like that, just what to do. So I guess it's sort of a comment and a question. I don't even know where to find the information about how to compare these two, and is MG&E's really a good deal compared to some of these things? I don't know,
That sounds like a good topic
Yep.
for sustainable you.
Okay, great. I love that, Lisa. Also,
We're down to 0
wait.
minutes for Q
Okay.
questions. What do you want to
Right.
do, Lisa?
We'll let Dick ask a question and then we'll move on. And Christy, if you have other questions, you can always contact Kelly directly.
I'm
Thanks.
good. Thank you.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Dick.
thanks. Yeah, thanks. I agree fully with Dominic on his point. I've been pushing RNG, and I thought the county in one of Parisi's more recent talks had said that half of their truck fleet or their bigger fleet is now on RNG or natural gas. And I think Quick Trip is providing the natural gas. So it's not like we need to put it in the building in order to be able to get the fuel, as I understand it. So I guess I'm just wondering if the county is really pushing it and doing it, why can't we have the county be providing whatever the information is that would give comfort to our fleet manager? Because if it's something he or she doesn't understand, having that person drag an anchor along here all the way just feels like we're not making progress. So I guess I'd like to see us, you Kelly, get the county to be reacting to about, hey, we're using the county, we're using 50% of our vehicles, we like them, or if they don't work, then fine, let's find out. But let's not let our fleet manager who's not used to something dragging an anchor while we don't have the facility in the house to put it in while we have Quick Trip. Let's move on this rather than buying more vehicles that are still the old fashioned. I really hate to see us miss an opportunity to start buying newer equipment.
Yeah, we've really pushed and pushed and pushed on this, and the county has reached out multiple times and even designed entire educational get-togethers solely for Middleton, and invited our fleet manager to come to garages and stuff. What I've heard, I'm just being honest, is that our fleet manager says when he talks to the drivers of those trucks in the county, they tell him that it's an utter disaster and that it's really horrible driving those trucks. But then when I talk to those same drivers, when I go to these events, they're like, no, it's great. Like, yeah, we had a few challenges early on, but we changed, we figured it out and now it's fine. So like, it's kind of stuck in then I push back. It's a process of, finding people in the county to talk to our people who our people trust. It's like it's an ongoing strategic thing. We find, that Sun Prairie Chief is friends with our folks here. So I think his comments on how great the hybrid interceptors are working is really helpful to make decisions here, but I can't supersede our fleet manager. I can't make the decisions for him. So he has to have buy-in. So we're trying.
I gotta do a quick follow-up. Why can't we, is he the decider on all this? Doesn't the council get some say on it? There ought to be somebody besides the fleet manager making the final decision. And if you've got good information that the county's worked out these problems and are working great, then somehow the council should be able to weigh in on this or something rather than just a recalcitrant fleet manager saying, well, I heard something a couple of years ago and I guess we're not going to go that way. I just feel like, sometimes curmudgeons need a little gentle nudging.
Curmudgeons need nudging?
Yeah, put that in the minutes, Kelly. Okay, well, this is good discussion. I think Dick has a good idea. Maybe we just need to find who is the fleet manager accountable to besides council, maybe Mike Davis, and maybe we can open up a dialogue and invite the fleet manager to talk to us at a future meeting. One last thing I'll add, Kelly, you were talking about vehicle purchases. And I noted before that the ARPA funding request that came from the library involves buying a vehicle for a bookmobile. And I think that's a perfect opportunity to get an electric van of some kind instead of an old fashioned kind of car. So I hope the library director will be receptive. Okay. Thank you for that report, Kelly. Thank you for the questions and comments, folks. Let's move on to the work plan. I put this earlier on the agenda because we have a tendency to put it at the end and then have like speed dating updates. So I am going to give a speed dating update on the Good Neighbor Festival. Plans are underway. I keep waiting to get notification that because of Delta variant, it's canceled in person, but so far so good. We have the shifts full for the, or staffed for the booth on Saturday and then Sunday afternoon. We've got and any new members who want to participate in either the helping out at the booth by talking to people or showing up in the parade on Sunday the 29th at noon. You're welcome to join. We have a great display that Daphne made regarding the MCP ASD resolution. Daphne's also going to be making the signs. The sign making materials should arrive this week, I hope. We also have a bunch of handouts coming in. I've got something from Clean Lakes Alliance. Kelly's going to be getting refrigerator magnets with the recycling center hours on them. We have bags. I hope we'll have bags. We have to make a decision by 2 tomorrow. The provider, the vendor is cutting it really close here. And we have a rack card that explains, it's like a, fatter bookmark, and explains 5 things that the committee is doing in the coming year and 5 things that all good neighbors can do to help us achieve the city's goals. And Maya Lathrop did the design for that. She's also going to be designing, working on the design for a longer explanation of all these things on the website. That's where the subgroup right now, we're working on the text for that, and we'll have our next meeting on Wednesday, and we'll talk about the finalize the text for that so that we can turn it over to Maya, and she can work on the website. It's great that Sophia has been able to update so many of the sustainability area web pages, because this is very timely. If we can go forward with making those live, this will be very timely for the Good Neighbor Festival on the 28th and 29th. Our budget, which we're going to talk about in item 6 on the agenda, we had budgeted $2,000. I would like to request that we bump that up to $2,300. I don't know if we'll have to go over 200, but we did incur some additional costs that we weren't anticipating for the bags. And I just want to make sure we're not over budget. So with a small change, we should be good. That's all that I had. Spencer, can we go to you next for a zoning update? And please include in that whether or not the committee members, any of us should show up. I'm planning to be there Thursday if it goes forward, but can you tell us about the meeting, the public info meeting?
There's several public info meetings that have been worked on. I don't actually know a ton about it. I know Vanderwall is putting this one on. There's multiple phases. We met, it was before our last sustainability committee meeting. We met, gave direction, and then they're taking this and they're running with these public meetings. So I don't have a ton of information specifically on it. If anybody has any, like I said last time, if there's any 2 cents that you want to add to it, I believe they'll be calling the meeting for me to be participating in again once they're done with some public input to be able to see where we're at with it. So it's again, I am very excited about the potential of where we can go with it. Zoning is a very big thing to wrap your mind around, and I think Vanderwall does a great job of being able to put it into a nutshell to help people understand and say, if we're rewriting the zoning rules, how is this going to look and how is this going to affect you individually? The goal is to bring everything into it. One of the examples that they talked about is, and I don't have the exact right numbers, but let's say there's 30%. So we have a minimum lot size as a zoning ordinance in our standard residential property. And I think 30% of the lots in Middleton don't fit in that minimum, okay? They don't fit in the minimum because they were built under a PUD, a planned urban development, or under some other temporary, for lack of a better word, zoning restriction. Middleton Hills, Hidden Oaks, all these different neighborhoods have these little tiny lots. What we want to do is we want to bring in the ability to plan and build and put these lots into something that's doesn't have to be a special case scenario, so we can have higher density if we want to, or if we want to have 3 stories or 8 stories or whatever we want the downtown to look like. Do we want areas around the high school to maintain their character and have these little bungalows, or do we want people to be able to come in there and tear them down and rebuild bigger houses in there, right? Do we want to have new developments with half-acre lots? One question that we addressed years ago on the committee was there was a new development being proposed. It was going to be can't remember the name, the concept of the zoning they were going to do, but they were going to do mid-sized lots, half acre with septic. do we want that for the city? So all these questions, until you really get into and think about it. So I'd encourage everyone to go to a public meeting that you can get to be able to hear about it and think about it. And helps you formulate what's going on in the zoning.
Thank you, Spencer.
Yep.
Yes, the meeting that I was talking about, I just saw a flyer, the Middleton Equity Connection shared it because there are also equity issues with zoning. And that's this Thursday, the 19th at 6:30. Looks like 6:30 to 8 at City Hall. And it says it's a public workshop. So I'm not sure what all that entails, but I committed to go. So I'm going to be there.
That's good. I would also like to say, when we selected Vanderwall, when everyone put in the RFP, Vanderwall has done a ton of rezoning. The guy who's leading it is kind of his final project before he leaves, he retires. So they've done a ton of rezoning with equity and sustainability in mind. So it was very written throughout the RFP, and that's where their mindset is. So we are in good hands with them right now.
Great, that's good to hear.
Excuse
Okay.
me, is there somebody who can send a notice or a list of the meetings that are coming up to the rest of the committee?
Kelly will do that. Kermit,
Thank
thank you.
Kermit, I think you can also sign up for those on the meetings.com or whatever we have for our agendas and packets. I think you can sign up for alerts on any of these meetings.
Good to know. Thank you. Daphne, do you have anything to share about the MCPASD Sustainability Committee and their work?
Actually, it's kind of unfortunate because tomorrow is actually the next meeting. So, not from last time, no.
Okay, all right, we'll look forward to that next time then. Sophia, Kelly, do you want Sophia to show us some of the web pages?
Sure, if that's possible. Sophia, do you have the web pages that you could share if I stop sharing or not? Is that possible?
Yeah, I have it up right now, so I can share my screen.
Okay, and we're looking at this because I think, Kelly, you want our okay with going live with these pages in the next week?
Yeah, I would love to go live with them as soon as possible, knowing that we can continue to tweak them and add to them. But it'd be nice to get feedback, or if there's things you really see missing that you want included, that would be great. It could also be ongoing feedback. And we sent them also to the committee as a whole with PDFs. It doesn't include all the links that you would have to follow, but these are drafts right now, so you cannot access them. If you just go to the website, you won't see them.
Yeah, the PDFs don't have the exact formatting that the website does. And Kelly's right, there's a lot of links on them as well. So I'm just going to kind of go over it briefly. Parts are text heavy or link heavy. So I'd like, any feedback. But I added a little bit to the welcome and then some more of the awards and achievements. And all of this is very much like a framework that can be added to and modified as the committee or community see fits and as need changes. And then there's kind of the main plans and resolutions on the main page, as well as just some representation of what sustainability looks like around Middleton. This is the main page. And then on the sustainability committee page, this is more of what you've worked on and events. And as Lisa was saying, I'm working with Maya on one of the sub pages here to add more of those details, whereas the other sustainability committee page kind of has like the logistics. So there's just some news article and awards, events, and this is where I've tucked the sustainable Middleton issues. And then to go back on the main page, this recycling subpage just links to the other recycling page on the website. I think that had the bulk of information needed, but I've added a community resources page, which has some kind of more about the Middleton Recycling Center and then links to that page again. So I've added reduction of waste and consumption, renewable energy, solar power, talking about the solar group buys, natural resources, and then a lot of resources for electric vehicles, electric equipment. I think it would be good to add something here, as we were discussing earlier, with how the process of buying an electric car, but it does link to MG&E's website and charging station map, and kind of the most recent guides I could find. And there's collaboration and partnerships page, breaks it down partially by area, so Dane County, and then Green Tier has its own section, as well as the Yahara watershed. And then there's the national and state organizations with just a little description about each of them. And then community participation and sustainability. This is really kind of up to all of you to add to, and I know that Sustainable You will kind of cross over with this as well. But there's description here, kind of bare changes you can make to daily routine, and then more practical or physical changes to your home with these resources. Some are Wisconsin specific, especially with like ground covers and native plants. And then I added some of these interactive tools. These aren't like Wisconsin or Middleton specific, but I think they can be helpful for people to just have more of an understanding, if that's the way that they learn better, of their personal carbon footprint. This is more like a game, but it kind of gives an understanding of how urban development affects the environment, and then some emissions, can play around with that. And then finally, there's this equity page that I created. This is also a little bit more general in the beginning, kind of outlining the comprehensive plan and the goals within that pertain to equity, as well as a land acknowledgement that we're hoping to also add more of this information to the history of the city page, because it kind of leaves a gap of a lot of this history. And the 2 resolutions that were passed within the past year, and then the intersection of equity and sustainability, as well as discussing partially working towards the certification for LEED, and hopefully once we've added more context and analyzing that data, hopefully we can share some of that here as well. So that's just kind of the overall work I've done on the website. So yeah, if you have any feedback, I would love to hear it. And I don't know if you, oh yeah.
I think it looks amazing. Thank you so much, Sophia, for doing all this work. This is so much more than what we currently have on the public website. Dominic has his hand raised.
Yeah, overall, amazing. I'd encourage you to get this online as soon as you possibly can. This is amazing information consolidation. I did have a couple of really annoying wordsmithing comments. I'll maybe submit those to you offline if that's okay, to preserve time. And then a couple of other thoughts. This is probably beyond the scope of the initial website, but I thought it might be kind of cool to have a visual scorecard of the city of Middleton's progress against some of its goals, the 2025 goal, as well as the 2035 goal. That probably requires some content generation, and maybe that's beyond scope, but I thought that could be really cool, just to see how we're doing against our commitments. And then additionally, I just really love, there are a couple of links that you type in your address and it'll kind of tell you what your rooftop solar potential is. If some homeowner like myself gets excited about, what can I do to help? We'll type in my address, how much can I contribute by tossing solar on my roof? Just really takes all the guesswork and all the research out of it. And that's a link that you could consider adding as well. Overall, awesome stuff though. Thank you for putting this together.
Great, yeah, and Dominic, please send that link to Sophia so she can put it up. Kermit?
Yeah, I really appreciate the content. I like the number of the issues that you engaged and present some material, some thoughts and sustainability framing on, from equity to power to community versus individual versus collective action. couple of quick things. One, I have some resources related to beneficial electrification that I think would be worth incorporating. So I can get that to you offline. I appreciate, I forget which page it was. I think it was community resources or community action, where you were saying it's not just an individual responsibility. We need to work together. I ultimately would like to see us figure out a way to expand that, to give some options, resources, whether it's in terms of groups that you can collaborate, join, participate in to help make the systems change that we need. But I do think that's incredibly important, and we need to beef that up, because if the words say, don't think that this can only be dealt with with individual action, but we have lots of individual action without giving some framing for stepping out collectively, then we're not creating the reality that allows people to say, oh yes, there is something I can do. I can write a letter, I can attend a meeting, I can, engage in direct action. So that being said, I'd rather get, like I think Dominic said, and others have said already, I'd rather get this up and out there as is than to bog it down waiting for these enhancements. But I would like to have these particular enhancements clearly on our action list to follow up on. And I will also reiterate that, or affirm the scorecard idea. I don't know whether I think there's something on the budget that Kelly's going to be reporting on about a building monitor system that might be very helpful along those lines to kind of give some graphic feedback about concrete action. But I do think we need to build that up and make it easy to find. I've been working with people who've been looking at Madison, and Madison, the good news is they have some of this kind of information. The bad news is it's next to impossible to find. So I think we want to find ways to make it accessible and visible. And the last thing I'll mention is, I don't know, in the list of past actions, I think we didn't include the referendum. And I know Spencer and I have been around long enough that we have fond, if not painful, memories of all the work that went into making that happen. And I think that's one of those foundational transition points for the Sustainability Committee. And then I think there's a couple additional resolutions beyond the one that I noticed was mentioned that, again, would be worth including.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for that,
But
Kermit.
again, great job overall. Love it.
And I would encourage anyone who has, including Dominic and Kermit, who have already spoken, I would suggest that you sum up your comments and pass them on to Sophia, so that even if before she leaves, she can take care of it, great. If not, Kelly will have that record. And I would ask too, and I'll put this in a message, I wonder if we can add either under community or the equity part, there is this Middleton Equity Connection, which is a grassroots citizen organization. Cross Plains has its own group. And we try to partner with them sometimes, but I think it would be good to have our Middleton group referenced here for people who are interested in that issue and want to get more involved. So, and I thought somebody else had a hand
May I
raised.
sorry. I did reach out to the Middleton Equity Connection for what they would want to have as a descriptor and also their meeting information. They haven't reached back to me.
Okay.
So whenever they do, then I can add that on.
Okay, good. That's good to know.
I heard from them, and they were a bit hesitant to put anything on the city webpage. So I think that it's going to take another month or two for them to decide if they want their information on the city website.
Okay. And I can ask at the next meeting what the concern might be. Kermit and Katie?
And one question I had was, to what extent is our format constrained by the package that the city has purchased for their web presence? Because I am thinking that while the content is really great, I don't know that we are leveraging the opportunities for visual impact and ease of navigation that current website design opportunities give us. And so that's something that's, I think, probably beyond Sophia's scope of ability or responsibility, but it's a question I have. Can we do more than just lots of text with lots of links? Or is it really pretty much that's all the Civic Engage platform lets us have?
Okay. That can be on our list of things to cover. Katie, and then last word to Sophia on this subject.
Hey, I just wanted to say awesome, awesome work. And I especially loved seeing the land acknowledgement. So thanks for that.
Great. Sophia?
Yeah, thank you all, and I really appreciate your comments. So as Lisa said, if you can send them to me, that would be great. As far as the website, unfortunately, it's pretty constrained. You can add like little widgets of images, which I tried to do. Sometimes it was harder when the page already existed as well. But yeah, it's quite constrained to that format, unfortunately.
Good to know. Okay, Kermit, how are we doing on time for this segment?
Looks like we could, well, are we looking for this segment or are we looking for the total meeting? For this
30
segment, we have 7 minutes left. For the total
Okay.
meeting, we're
Okay, we'll focus on the next 7 minutes and then we'll deal with the next segment after that. So this part is where we recruit volunteers. So here are the things that you all, I hope, will consider volunteering to either work on or maybe even lead. This is a great opportunity to help your city. I totally appreciate that you're all here tonight and every month and in between our meetings, volunteering your time and your expertise and your passion to making Middleton a more sustainable city, a more equitable city, and a great place for people to live. So we have 3 opportunities to volunteer right now for events that are going to take place over the course of the next several months until the end of this fiscal year, which will be at the end of June. Number 1 is Sustainable You. And my apologies for sending, I think I sent the wrong link. I think I linked to the Good Neighbor Festival activity summary instead of the Sustainable You. But in a nutshell, they would be similar to the Green Thursdays, I think maybe. I never attended one of those, but the idea is to get information, small nuggets to members of the public or businesses if they want to attend. We would have 5 of these sessions, 1-hour-long sessions, every other month for to finish all 5, taking off the summer because nobody wants to gather in the summer. They'd be Zoom or in person or hybrid, if that works. Ideally, we'd partner with the library, and I've actually submitted a request through the library website to partner with the library in planning and hosting these events. And the idea would be to cover 2 or 3 topics. I'm a real big fan of making things digestible and not taking an entire hour on a single topic. I think that's just too much for people. It's like the too long didn't read, but it's too long didn't pay attention. So the idea would be to take like 3 subjects, package them each for about 15 minutes total, and really make sure the speakers are prepared to cover the most important things that a resident would want to know or need to know, like to buy an electric car. Here are the top 10 things you need to know. And we would also have an opportunity at the beginning to take turns, emceeing or hosting and share a little bit about what the sustainability committee is doing, get feedback from the attendees afterwards, and maybe there's an idea for, I don't know, preparing a car magnet or something that people can get if they attend so many, or if they attend one and request it, just to spread the word. So I'm happy to lead this now that the Good Neighbor Festival is winding down, or will by the end of the month. And so I just need 1 or 2 volunteers to help organize either, brainstorm about all the sessions, or if you're only interested in, helping out with one, given your schedule, or your particular interest, that's fine too. But, the more people we have, I'm learning from the Good Neighbor Festival subgroup that, if we have 4 people, it really, really helps. So if anyone's interested, Daphne, your hand is raised. Is that an expression of interest? Yay. Thank you, Daphne. Okay, so if anyone else, oh, Christy is
I
interested.
can
too.
help you, Lisa.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Can I just make a comment? Can I make a comment on that, please?
Sure.
Yeah. Having given talks at Clean Lakes Alliance breakfast meetings 101, they've been taped, and they're really valuable because then you have the whole record and you have the link for a YouTube. And so a lot of times people can't go to the individual things. And my only feeling about having 3 in one thing, sometimes, yeah, I get what your point is, but sometimes you can get into more details on something and have a Q&A after it, and then have it taped, or recorded, and then it's available as a YouTube link, and it's on a particular subject, so somebody can go back to that subject. Or if it's on a meeting with 3 different topics and it's harder to get to the subject matter you're wanting to get into. So I just throw that out as something for you to consider.
Okay, yeah, definitely we would want to record these, whether they're in person or Zoom. And that's a good point. I'm sure there's a way to slice up the sessions. So if we wanted to have them, just here's the 15 minutes on electric cars, or on winterizing your home, we could do that. Kermit, your hand is raised.
Yeah. 2 things. One, keep me in the loop. I'm really excited to hear the discussion and the ideas, and I'm just worried about the overcommitting. So I want to be involved, but I'm cautiously volunteering at this point.
Okay.
And as far as work plan items, I want to squeeze in an acknowledgement that we have a sustainability plan draft that has been in suspended animation for a number of months. We had many volunteers, including subgroups that spun off from the committee overall. And it's 3/4 of the way through the year and we haven't finished it. And so I'm just really wanting to wave the flag and say, we need to figure out whether we need to pay people to do this, or Lisa's now retired and she has all this free time, or however we're going to do it.
I
We
can
need to make
assure
it
you,
happen.
Kermit, I can assure you, Kelly and I are keenly aware of the status of the Sustainable City Plan, and it is on our list, at the top of our list for next month's meeting, to revisit this and make sure we have
Okay.
access to all of the files that the members reviewed and commented on. And it's been, I've made a big deal of the comprehensive plan had to come first. To me, there was just no way to have the Sustainable City Plan come out and then the comprehensive plan come out with a green city chapter that doesn't completely align with the Sustainable City Plan. So we've got the comp plan, and the Sustainable City Plan should be basically our work plan and the city's work plan for like maybe a 5-year period. And then our own committee work plan falls, tiers off of that. So but good point. We will definitely address that next time and dig into it a little more especially for the new members' benefit. There are 2 other activities coming up for which we need volunteers. One is the LED bulb exchange. And I know we're almost out of time, but we got
10 seconds.
Okay. So
For
there's an
this
LED
segment.
bulb exchange. We did it in April. Maybe the new members might have shown up at that at the recycling center. And Deb and Dick led this up, and Daphne last time. I know Deb has priced the light bulbs, but the idea for the new members is at the recycling center, we collected shredding. It was an LED bulb and shredding event. So people brought their shredding. And then they also brought in their old incandescent or CFL bulbs, and we exchanged them. It was going to be 5 for 5, but we wound up taking, whatever people brought, which may or may not have been the right approach, but it worked, and people really loved it and wanted to do it again. So the committee needs to decide tonight, are we going to do this again during 2021? Or do we want to make this an Earth Day activity? This is, we timed it just coincidentally in April of last year. So do we want to just keep it a once-a-year thing? Do we want to do it again this year? And Kelly, if we decide to do it next year instead, can we buy the bulbs this year? Dick?
Yeah. We're obligated to have 2 shredding events, not obligated, but actually Pelletary is obligated to do 2 shredding events. And I feel that's a service that we are giving the community. And the pairing of the light bulb thing with it was more for convenience. It was a lot of work to prepare for the light bulb thing. And I feel like it's a good thing to do. I'm more in favor of not adding another thing to work on this fall, but make it another event we would do with a pairing, like it works out well at the recycling center with the shredding, but make it an Earth Day kind of event again. So that's my vote on that. But I would like us to start thinking about how do we get more light bulbs into low-income housing and places rather than just making it affordable to those people that can, make it available to those people that would drive there. Because I really don't feel like that the people that really need the bulbs are the ones that are probably getting them. So I'd like us to think about how we would do it again, but maybe try to really deliver them more to low-income residents.
Okay. Dominic?
Yeah, very quickly, we could, to respond to Dick, we could consider rotating the location. Lakeview Park could be one possible location where it happens on a sunny Saturday or something.
We could also repeat what we did last year, which was to give a bunch of bags to MOM, Middleton Outreach Ministry, and they were able to put them on the menu for their clients coming through. And they were well received because we only got a couple bags back. Deb?
Okay, when I checked on the price, they're 25 cents a bulb currently. That could change at any moment. It changes from month to month. Sometimes they get $1 a bulb, sometimes they get 25 cents a bulb. But the recommendation was, if we're gonna do this next spring, we order them soon. We order them this fall, so we have them at that price. Otherwise, it's a government program. That government program could end. Okay, so that's the first thing. I also think it should be next spring. I think we're doing this Good Neighbor Fest. It's just too much this fall to do that as well. And I agree with the let's get MOM involved again. That was a good thing. That they took care of it. We got them the bulbs, and they distribute them.
Okay. So is anybody feeling really strongly to do it this year, or are we all pretty much agreed April sounds great with getting the bulbs this year? And we timed, again, it was just when the bulbs were purchased, but we timed the MOM event to be in December. And I think Kermit maybe did something, I don't know if it said making spirits bright or something like that. We tried to work that in so we could update that. Okay, so who wants to volunteer to work on a small subgroup to plan and organize this event? And it doesn't mean that you will be the only people at the exchange, because the rest of us can volunteer, but who wants to take the lead on making this happen?
Well, I mean, I can,
Deb?
yeah.
Daphne, you're volunteering on this one too? Okay, thank you. So we have Deb and Daphne and Dick. All right.
So Daphne, are you going to spearhead a school event as well?
I'll let you guys talk about that when you have your first subgroup meeting, and you can decide who's going to like talk amongst yourselves about who's going to take the lead on, setting up the calls. Obviously Kelly can be involved in helping to set those up too.
And what about ordering? Are we going to order or not?
We will, and
Maybe-
that'll be
Maybe
a,
after our first meeting, we would decide then, okay, we're gonna order so many bulbs. And are we having approval from this committee to go ahead and order stuff, or do we need to come back with a proposal for the next meeting? And then you give us the green light to go ahead and order those bulbs?
I believe it's the latter, although item number 6 on the agenda today is to look at expenditures for the rest of calendar year 2021. So we can make sure that we're budgeting some money for that activity. Okay, and the last thing for which we need a group to start planning is our Lakeview Park Shelter Celebration. It's going to be a family-friendly event, educational event to sort of celebrate well, obviously
For the record, we're 5 minutes over our last segment.
Okay,
And
this
it's
is
almost 8
the
o'clock.
last. This is the last one, I promise. But then there's a reason why we have these 3 on here. It's because like the LED bulb exchange, we got to make a decision on the bulbs. The sustainable U, we should start organizing the first session. And the Lakeview Park Shelter Celebration is going to include helping Kelly identify what would make a really great permanent display for educating park visitors about the solar array that's there, things they might be able to do in their homes, or the city's goals for renewable energy, whatever you all decide. It's going to be a permanent display that our committee is going to pay for and pay for the design of. And then also planning what kind of ceremonial ribbon cutting celebration do we want to have? Do we want to have demos of electric mowers or electric bikes or, electric vehicles? Just the sky's the limit. Well, our budget is the limit, but this is where your creativity can really shine and be useful. And I would say we need 3 to 4 people to do this and 1 person to serve as one of those 3 or 4 to serve as the lead. So is anybody interested in this activity? Kelly is. Kermit?
The
I could
spirit is
help on
willing,
that,
the flesh is
Kelly.
weak.
Okay, so we've got, oh my gosh, we've got the 4 Ks. We have Kelly, Christy, Katie, and Kelsey.
I also wanted to recommend, if you want, to go to the Arts Committee to get some help on that.
That's a great idea. That's a really great idea. Okay, all right. Thank you all very much for volunteering your time. It's really exciting. Kelly, you know where the template is for the activity summaries. We just keep a record of, you've all seen, I think, the activity record or summary that we have for the Good Neighbor Festival. It's just a way of sketching out the idea. And when we're done with the Good Neighbor Festival, we're going to be doing lessons learned and logging those for next time. So at some point in the course of your work, please make sure you fill out one of those so that we can, as a committee, can stay in the loop on what all you're proposing to do. And I think you'll have a lot of fun. The Good Neighbor Festival planning has been a weekly thing, which we did not really expect, but it's been really useful. I think we've done it very efficiently, and it's going to have I think a big impact for Middleton, and I think all these other events will too. Okay, Kelly, you're up for the budget.
Did we have 8 o'clock as a proposed end time?
We always do. So if someone would
So
like to
then
make a
we-
motion to extend the time for a set period, say,
The budget section here was reserved at 30 minutes. Is that what we're still committing to or needing?
I think maybe we could do it in less. I mean, nothing much has changed since the last meeting, but it depends what discussion you end up having.
okay. Somebody want to make a motion to extend the time for 20 minutes? Daphne moves. Deb seconds. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Not seeing any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, Kermit, start the timer. And Kelly,
20 minutes. I'll
The-
I'll wave my hands at 5 minutes left.
there's two things to discuss. One is the operating budget recommendations for this year, for 2021. I don't think we need to necessarily talk about 2022, but I did put some placeholders in there so you could just see some of the bigger ticket items that we might be faced with for potential spending next year. And again, for the new members, our operating budget is $10,000 per year, and it must be spent by December 31st, and there is no way to roll it over. So anything we do not spend by December 31st just goes back into the general fund of the city, and they can spend it on whatever they want, and we can't specify that it gets spent on any particular thing. So it's a use it or lose it type of operating budget. And typically, for items that are larger than $25,000, you would ask for capital budget for, and that would be an ask that would need to come from a department like the planning department or the public works department. But for smaller items that just are year to year operating things, that's what this budget is for. And so right now we have approximately 7,400 left in our operating budget that we need to spend before December 31st. And I've listed some of the higher priced items that I can think of that we will probably spend money or could spend money on before December 31st. And so these are all negotiable. You can decide to do none of them, all of them. But the long story short is that if you did all of them at the level that I've put in there, and even if you add the additional $300 that Lisa was wanting to add to the Good Neighbor Festival, you would still have about, I think like $3,000 left at the end of December. So you're not, what I've put here, you're not coming close to depleting all the money by the end of the year. I think you're good on budget is what I'm trying to say. So there's not really a I don't need like a motion to spend money on this, but as a committee, this is really your choice. So it is nice, I think, for the higher ticket items to know that the entire committee is on board with it, so that they don't wonder why we spent $750 on something and we didn't discuss it fully in a committee meeting and approve it. So these are the items we could spend money on. The Good Neighbor Festival, the light bulb event, I think was approximately $750, the bulbs for the last event. We could go ahead and purchase the $750 I put in here would be to purchase the bulbs this year with our money this year to use the bulbs next spring. We can decide to do another utility flyer in October. We did one in April and I thought it was pretty successful. We got a lot of calls from residents asking further questions about what was in the utility flyer. And it does go to every single household and businesses as well. So it reaches everyone. And for a color flyer, I think we actually came in under $600 for that spring utility flyer. But the company that did it told us that it was a special deal they gave because they really like the staff person in our city. So I can't promise it would be that low again. So I estimated approximately $700 if we did another communication color two-sided flyer that would go out with all the utility bills. At the Sustained Aim Conference, I added in 5 registrations. We could add in all 10 registrations and we'd still be able to cover that this year. We do get 1 free ticket because we're members for Sustained Aim, and that's a conference that happens in November. It's $69 each or $20 for a student, which would be Daphne. And then there's a few Middleton Recycling Center items. that would add up probably to a few $100s. And they also have a few additional expenses. There's so much recycling happening right now, I think, because people are working from home and generating more waste that they take to the center. So there's been an uptick in some of the funds needed to run some of those recycling programs. So potentially we may need $300 more than what I've budgeted there, maybe not. And then the other item that I haven't talked to you about is ordering no idling signs that some of the light bulb folks and paper shredding volunteers discussed with Rick Arletson, who presented us with the graphic that Fitchburg used with their anti-idling, no idling signs. And I think they'd probably maybe even be cheaper than $100. But if you would like me to go ahead and just order those, I could do that so that Middleton has its own no idling signs, and we could use those for special events or things like the paper shredding event where people sit in their cars for long periods of time. We could set those out to remind people to turn their cars off if there's a big backup, things like that. So that's this year. And you can comment on this in just 1 second. Let me just quickly say that for next year, these are some pie in the sky things. Some of this I didn't really have worked out at all, because I think that if we paid for a summer intern, which I think is totally worth it, after having Sophia around for the summer, we got so much more work done, and we have our website work done. I think that we could probably cover this through the planning budget. It just might be a few less hours than Sophia's had for her internship, so we may not need that. And then the display at Lakeview, which is the big ticket item, I would hope that we could take that money out of our remaining solar account budget that put the solar on Lakeview. I'm hoping we have about $50,000 or $60,000 left in that account. So I'm hoping that we could use the 10,000 of that to cover the display and do a capital carryover. And I've asked the financial director if that's okay, and he just hasn't gotten back to me yet. He's been on vacation. So I don't think it's good to get in the weeds talking about next year's necessarily, but these are some of the things I've been thinking about. So does anyone have any comments on the operating budget? And then I'll move on to the capital, which is where it would be helpful to have some referrals or recommendations that come from that.
Okay, Dick has his hand raised.
Yeah,
Dick and then Deb.
yeah. On the light bulb exchange, I mean, 25 cents a bulb, or if we order 2,000 bulbs, that's only $250. I'm wondering if you were thinking about what we would get to recycle the back bulbs, but we won't have those until next year. So we may end up spending quite a bit less than $750. Just because we're not going to have an event this fall. Maybe that's what you were thinking we would have, but we wouldn't be picking up bulbs to get rid of. And just as a quick FYI, can you tell us how much did we actually spend on the light bulb exchange last year? I don't mean buying bulbs, but the processing of them, because I know that was pretty expensive.
Yeah, I should know that. I do have that in my records. It was hundreds of dollars, I think, to recycle bulbs. But
it had to be, because it was like 50 cents a bulb, and we got, a lot of bulbs. We had 1,000 bulbs, didn't we?
Kelly, can you look up and tally that total and make sure it goes into the activity summary, so we have that record? We also had probably a small expense. Maya had done the flyer as a project, so we didn't have to pay for graphic design. But we did pay for printing or copying. And so maybe updating that flyer for next year is an expense that could be part of that 750. Or maybe we need more than 750.
Well, but a lot of that cost probably won't be known or realized until next fiscal year. So as far as expenses to finish out the rest of this year, I mean, planning for the event, a lot of it, the details won't happen until probably in fiscal year 22.
I think the only cost we'd have this fiscal year would be just the bulbs. And then next year you'd pay for the recycling and the printing and that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, and remember, you'll need bulbs. We'll need bulbs for Mom.
Well, $250 would be 1,000 bulbs for mom, and $500 would be 2,000 bulbs for the event. And that's what we bought last time, was 2,000 bulbs for the event itself, which we had leftovers for the church, Catholic Church as well.
I think that's where the that's where I estimated a bit high, because I knew if you wanted 2,000, I made it a little bit more than what it would cost for 2,000.
Well, I mean, with mom, I think $750 for bulbs is the right amount. Wouldn't you want 1,000 for mom as well?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I agree. Yeah, I was not doing good math in my mind here. So yes, I get the 750. We're ordering 3,000 bulbs for a couple different events, and they're 25 cents a piece. So we're going to need 750 to buy them. Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right.
All right. Sounds good. Deb, did you have another comment about the
Well,
bulbs?
yeah, I wanted to comment on Dick, but I had my own comment, and that was, were we going to have any money necessary for Saltwise? Because some of what Allison was talking about was optimization and stuff. Were we involved with any of that in terms of monetary support?
Yeah, well, when we did our audit, the feedback that we got from Saltwise, it was that there wasn't any standout things we could do, but that we could go through and optimize a couple of the softeners, and that they have grant money available for that. So my next step was to look at what grant money they have available and follow up with just doing that citywide, and then move to, hopefully the committee might support working on that with more community-wide next year. They're working out some kinks in McFarland with their community-wide program. And then I think they'll be more amenable to letting Middleton run more of a community-wide program that they would help with.
Okay.
Kelly, do you need a motion from us to approve the 2021 expenditures, or are none of them big ticket enough to cause concern?
I don't know if I need a motion. Like, I wouldn't want to get down into and you can spend $346.55 kind of motion for different things. But I guess a general, as long as everyone's aware of these expenditures and they're okay with them, then I would like to be able to go ahead and purchase things as they come up through. And there might be things that you want to spend money on before the end of December that aren't on this list, that you just decide you want to do in November or September. So.
Okay. Well, the biggest ticket item on there is the Good Neighbor Festival, which the committee has already seen the budget for and approved the concept of the activity. So I'm comfortable just moving on to the capital budget discussion, and noting that there were no objections to the items in this spending plan, preliminary spending plan, I guess, for the rest of the calendar year. Kermit?
I'm just wanting to clarify, at the top of the operating budget, it says current balance is 7,450. And then at the bottom, it says total fiscal year 2021 is 4,296.
Yeah, that's really confusing. I'm sorry. That was just the expenditures added up for 2021. I didn't even add up anything from 2022 because it's such a unknown at this point.
But the total fiscal year 2021 number includes items that have already been expended for or purchased in addition to the items on this list?
No, it only includes items. I mean, what you would have left if I spent every bit of this would be the 4,000 subtracted from the 7,450. So you will have about 3,000 or more left after all those expenditures. So you've got a good cushion for the rest of the year if you want to even make some bigger ticket purchases before the end of December.
That was the main thing I was wanting to clarify.
Sorry,
So we have a very healthy cushion that we can maneuver in between now and the end of the year. Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to go on mute and stop my video because I have to run.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, Dick?
Yeah, I mean,
This is the
Like-
5-minute warning.
like the last few years, we have a lot of money left at the end of the year and we don't know how to spend it. And I'm just wondering, is there a way to help buy some help on the sustainability plan? You know, like $3,000, get a contract set up to provide some real horsepower
Yep.
to provide some of the background information or whatever to develop the sustainability plan. I don't want to see us leave another $3,000 unspent. And so, yes, we don't want to commit every penny, but on the other hand, leaving $3,000 and like last year, we got to December and we didn't know how to spend it, you know, so we're scrambling around. So is there some creative way we can start thinking about some items that would use up all our money?
The answer is yes, we can, and we can return to, I mean, we're in a better position now than we were last year because it was just, I think it was December, if you remember, that we were trying to figure out how to spend money. So we're here in August and there are some things like the energy analysis software that maybe that's something that can be elevated, or beginning planning for the Lakeview Park shelter display that could be included, or consulting help with the sustainable city plan. So we'll take that, we'll put that on the agenda or on the list of agenda items for next time. Kermit, your hand is still raised.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with Dick. I think if nothing else, we really can use it to put the pedal to the metal on the sustainability plan. And this time we have advanced notice that we can work through whatever the contracting rigmarole is that, you know, got in our way last year.
Okay. All right, Kelly, you want to explain the capital budget requests?
And we're down to 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'll leave off the ARPA stuff. I'll just say that I'm submitting solar at the utility wells number 6 and 8, which would total 162,850, and asking that that solar to be paid out of ARPA infrastructure funds. And I submitted that to the finance. They're discussing it tomorrow at the finance meeting, and then also at council. They asked me to provide them with these types of projects to talk about. So there was interest from Mark Sullivan asking for this. So I think potentially that could happen. And then we'll also submit, I'm not exactly sure what dollar amount we'll land on, but I have to decide this week on how much to ask for energy efficiency and solar in naturally occurring affordable housing, also for ARPA funds under their COVID recovery guidance. And then from the city budget, which is completely separate from the ARPA federal stimulus funds, there's also a bit of a question because for the energy analysis software, I don't have to submit a budget that says we're going to use this company for this particular service, but I need to come up with a reasonable quote that would cover hiring a third party to help us with the energy analysis, where you input your energy bills and then you can learn your GHG emissions from your electricity and gas usage. You can have a public dashboard, much like Dominic was talking about. I really also want to have that on our website as a dashboard that's real time, that shows how we're doing on energy use and meeting our energy goals. They would provide that kind of graphics and reporting that you could run at any point. It also would help you with operating, where you could decide, I think we need to switch this entire building over in LEDs. How much would that cost? What would the payback be? How long would it take? You can do those types of things pretty quickly with this kind of software. And multiple companies do this. So, you know, it'd be something where I ask for an amount and then I get 3 quotes from different companies, look at which is the cheapest and which is most qualified, and then select that in the end. But the golf course solar is the question that I still have. I'm still talking with the financial director and Abby and different people on how to do that. Jeremy Chavalka is the director of the golf course, or he runs the golf course, but he's also staffs the committee. So the golf committee makes a lot of these types of decisions. I talked to him at length and sort of got him to commit to presenting golf course solar in his budget requests at this cost, $53,720, but it doesn't necessarily come with a golf course, recommendation to council. So I think it's just the timing of it all. So maybe it would be good to have the sustainability committee recommend that, golf course solar be approved by council in some way with a motion. I'm still not sure. We probably won't submit through planning. It would be from Jeremy. But the behind the scenes thing is that if it was a no-go and Jeremy said the committee just thinks it's like $10,000 or $20,000 too much, we could use that money from the solar account as a backup to help push it through this year. I want to get solar on the golf course, and I think that they should pay. They're an enterprise fund, but I also want to see it happen. So I'm willing to negotiate.
We're at our 20 minutes that we extended.
Well, that's all really.
So do you need a motion from us on the capital budget request or no? Because it sounded, I thought we did, but then it sounded like you're saying maybe we wait for the golf course folks to submit their budget and we support that instead of.
Well, I would like a recommendation for council to approve the energy analysis software, and it'll be submitted through the planning department budget. And then it might be helpful to recommend that solar be put on the golf course, although it doesn't have as much teeth because you're not necessarily the committee that makes those decisions. I don't know if there's time to refer it to the golf course committee for them to go through the process of making the recommendation. I'm a bit, I've asked a lot of people how to do this and I'm still confused about it, but Jeremy will submit this as a budget request. However, it might be submitted without recommendation from the golf course committee. So that's why I was hoping maybe sustainability committee could add their recommendation. I don't know, maybe that's a question for Katie, if she thinks that would help.
We need someone to make a motion to extend our time. Or not.
I would make the motion, but how much, when does the capital budget, when does that due?
August 20th.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to extend this meeting for 5 more minutes to make it one decision item.
Okay,
Christie, you seconding? Okay. All those in favor or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, 5 minutes. So Kelly, again, what exactly, like, phrase what you need us to do. If it's a recommendation, do you need someone to make a motion so that, we recommend this to council and then we vote on it? I see you've got the golf course solar. Do we want to recommend that the library get an electric bookmobile if they get the ARPA funds to do it? Is that fair game to include since we're weighing in on what the golf course might do? How do you want us to proceed?
How about several motions? How about one motion is that you recommend approval of the energy analysis software capital expenditure, which would include an ongoing operating budget request of approximately $3,000 per year. That's going to be the sticking point. And that's the piece where I'm not sure if the city would, you can recommend that to the city, but their operating budget is so tight that maybe it would fall to the sustainability committee to take that on. Like, it's a bigger discussion than 5 minutes, I guess. So I don't know what you want to do with
I'm
it.
sorry to interrupt. This is Katie. It sounds like you have enough of a cushion to just add that 3,000 in every year to the sustainability budget, right?
It sounds like it. Yep. I was going to suggest that for 2021. Dominic?
Yeah, I guess in my view, the energy analysis software is to empower the management of city infrastructure. I would hope that those managing the infrastructure would be consuming that information to make decisions, and that they would internalize the operational costs of that, perhaps from the savings that they're getting by leaving lights off at the end of the day, et cetera, subsidized at least. I mean, if we want to subsidize it, I'd support it. But I do think that we can be creative in how we invest in sustainability as a committee, rather than subsidizing the city's maintenance and operations budgets.
That's an excellent point, because one of the
Right.
things we try to keep in mind is that we shouldn't be the sustainability police. This should be something that is embraced by all the units of city government. And so your point's very well taken, Dominic. So does somebody want to move on the energy analysis software?
I will move to authorize the energy analysis software expenditure of $6,690.06. And I will move that we accept the yearly ongoing operating budget with the condition that we try to get the city to cover it.
Okay, and do we have a second? Christy, are you seconding? Okay, great. Any more discussion of the energy analysis software motion? Dick?
Yeah, I think the point was well made. Katie said, well, we have the money in our budget. And I like what Dominic was saying, that, well, it should be something that the city takes on as just a normal way of doing business. So I like the idea of getting the software as capital expenditure and supporting it as a motion. I guess I'm uncomfortable including in that motion that we, get the operating budget locked in without having a chance to figure out if we really want to commit that as a ongoing committee expense. So I'm asking Katie, I guess, as a friendly amendment, if she would drop that and we get at least the motion passed on the software analysis.
I will take that friendly amendment and just make my motion that we get the energy analysis software.
Christy, you're okay with that change?
And if
Okay.
so I would second it then.
Well, we had Christy seconding it, but thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. All right, so any more discussion?
So that means that the city must cover the operating year to year. I'm just clarifying.
Well, not necessarily, but we're not
being
committing.
silent. Yeah, we're being silent on that issue.
Okay.
All right, so all those in favor of the motion by Katie to support the purchase of the energy analysis software signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And then Kelly, do you need one on the golf course or are we good?
I think, do you think, Katie, we could refer to the golf committee and also recommend that council approve the golf course solar expenditure?
Yeah, I think that would be a referral that we could make. Do you want me to move that we do that?
Yes, that'd be great. I think it should
Okay,
be referred to them, but I don't want that to be the end all.
Right, I move that we refer the golf course solar program to the golf committee with our recommendation that they put this in their budget. Am I saying that the way you want me to?
I second.
Kermit seconds. Okay, any discussion?
We want to add on there that we support, we're referring it and we support it as a committee to put solar on the golf course.
Sure, I'll amend to that.
Yeah, I think that was the implication I took from it, but it's probably good to clarify that we're referring it and supporting it.
Right.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion to refer the golf course solar project to the solar or the golf committee with our endorsement signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, another unanimous vote. So Kelly, do you have what you need from us?
Yeah, who seconded that?
I do.
Kermit.
Got it.
We're at -1 minute.
All right, we have to talk backwards now.
Right.
The last item on the agenda is just agenda items for next time, and I think we heard loud and clear, sustainable city plan is the big one. So we'll budget a lot of time for that. Kelly, were there other topics that you had on the short list?
Chicken ordinance.
Oh, returning to the ground rules. We need to do that after we get the information from Mike Davis. And then the groups that volunteered to work on different activities, please, at the very least, connect with one another, and I will connect with the Sustainable Youth people and try to set up a time for a conference call just to check in, or a Zoom meeting just to check in and start sketching out some plans. Obviously, some of these are not until spring, but it's still a good idea to, especially since we need to purchase bulbs this year, it'd be a good idea for the LED group to get together. Deb?
Maybe a debrief from the Good Neighbor Fest.
Yes, that would be good too. Okay.
And maybe an acknowledgement, brief discussion about the IPCC report, just to kind of light a fire under us.
Okay, that sounds good. And then any other ideas, please get them to me and Kelly a week before our meeting. And Sophia, is this our last time seeing you?
It is, unfortunately, but it was so great to meet all of you virtually, and I really learned from all of you. And please send me your comments on the website. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for all your help, Sophia. We really appreciated having you. Way to go, University of Chicago, student and alumni. We had like the little trifecta of the three of us. So yeah, we hope to see you maybe in the future, Sophia, and good luck. Best of luck back in your sophomore year at school.
I'm dad of an alumni, so I'm close.
Okay, good. It rubs off then. All right. Well, under Robert's Rules of Order, there being no further business, I can adjourn the meeting. I appreciate all of you taking the time and some extra time tonight and doing it, contributing a lot to the discussion and to the work of this committee. And I look forward to seeing some of whoever's able to come to the Good Neighbor Festival, even if you're not staffing or marching in the parade. Drop by the booth and get your free bag, assuming we have them in time. Fingers crossed. Enjoy this gorgeous weather and have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.